Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Chapter 31. This venerable one's uncle. In order to show his heartfelt devotion in front of his Shizun, the young master took 3 plates of charred tofu. He promised himself that he wouldn't waste a single piece and would eat all of it. Chu Wanning was really pleased, showing a rare appreciation in his eyes. Mo Ran, who was following behind him, took one look and wasn't happy about this. Ta Xianjun had an inexplicable obsession with Chu Wanning's approval, and immediately also asked for 3 servings of tofu. Chu Wanning glanced at him. "You're eating that much? Won't that make you sick?" Mo Ran and Xuemeng were full of determination. 3 is nothing. Even if there were 3 more, I could eat that too. Chu Wanning calmly said, "All right." Then he gave Mo Ran 6 servings of tofu and said, "The same goes for you. Don't waste it." Mo Ran. Since those 2 had asked for it, then Shimei shouldn't be an exception. He smiled and said, "Then, Shizun, I also want 3 plates." So, on the first day after Elder Yu Heng's confinement ended, his 3 disciples had stomach problems because of food poisoning. The next day, Elder Zhou found Chu Wanning and politely expressed that Menpo Hall wasn't in need of any extra workers. He asked Chu Wanning to head to Nahe Bridge to help sweep the fallen leaves and wipe the pillars. Nahe Bridge was a bridge connecting the main area of Shizhung Peak and the Disciples' Break area. It was wide enough for 5 horse-drawn carriages running side by side. 9 beasts carved out of white jade stood on the bridge's pillars, representing the 9 sons of the dragon. There were also 160 magnificent smaller pillars decorated with carved lion heads. Chu Wanning silently swept the ground. After that, he carefully wiped down the jade statues. He had been busy for most of the day when the sky got dark and rain started falling. Most of the disciples who finished their lessons didn't bring any umbrellas. They waded through puddles and ran towards their residences. Raindrops pattered on the stone steps. Chu Wanning gazed into the distance and saw young girls with relaxed smiles on their faces, cheerful despite being drenched from the rain. Chu Wanning knew that if they were to see him, the cheeriness and ease would disappear, so he thought about it and hid under the bridge. Some of the disciples who ran ahead came to the front of the bridge. They saw the sight and couldn't help but let out a barrier. Why is there a barrier on the bridge? Elder Suanji probably made it. A disciple guessed. Elder Suanji is the best at it. A translucent golden barrier enveloped the upper end of Nahe Bridge, spreading out and stretching across the main path towards the Disciples' Break area, covering the entire path the disciples were going to take. Elder Suanji must have made it. Isn't this place under his jurisdiction? Elder Suanji is so thoughtful. This barrier is so beautiful. The elder is really amazing. The disciples shook their wet hair. They hurriedly pushed into and hid in the barrier, talking all the way to the break area. Chu Wanning stood under the bridge, listening to the loud voices on the bridge until there was no more noise. The returning youngsters had moved far enough away. He slowly closed the barrier and calmly walked out from under the bridge. "Shizun." Suddenly, he heard someone call him. Chu Wanning's head jerked up. There was no one on the shore. "Up here." He looked up at the sound and saw Mo Ran sitting on the white jade bridge, dressed in silver and blue armor. His legs were laid lazily on the edge of the bridge railing. The young man's eyebrows were astonishingly black, and his eyelashes were like 2 small fans, hanging down in front of his eyes. He was holding a paper umbrella, staring at him with a smile. One of them was on the bridge, rustling leaves falling by. One was under the bridge, the cold rain flooding the river next to him. They just looked at each other, neither speaking for a while. The fog and rain in the sky were misty and lingering, bamboo leaves occasionally swaying down with the wind and rain, falling around the two. Finally, Mo Ran laughed teasingly. "Elder Suanji, you're all wet." Chu Wanning said coldly at almost the same time, "How did you know it was me?" Mo Ran pursed his lips, his eyes curled and his dimples showed. "It's such a large barrier. Elder Suanji can't make one that big, right? If not Shizun, who else could it be? Chu Wanning. Moran knew that he wouldn't bother to cast a barrier for himself to avoid the rain, so he had a bright idea and tossed down the umbrella. This is for you. Take it. The bright red paper umbrella fluttered down. Chu Wanning caught it. The bamboo wood handle of the umbrella was still warm. Crystal water droplets dripped down the umbrella surface. Chu Wanning tilted his head and looked at him. What about you? Moran gave a sly smile. Shizun can't cast a small barrier, so I won't get wet on my way back. Chu Wanning scoffed but still flicked his sleeve. A transparent golden barrier immediately appeared above Moran. Moran looked up and smiled. Haha, it's so beautiful. It's even covered in peony patterns. Thank you. Chu Wanning glanced at him. They're hatang. They only have 5 petals. After he spoke, the white robes and the scarlet umbrella left without a trace, leaving Moran standing alone in the rain, counting the petals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ah, there really are 5 petals only. When he glanced up again, Chu Wanning had already walked away. Moran narrowed his eyes. Standing under the barrier, the childish smile on his face slowly disappeared, gradually changing into a complex expression. He suddenly didn't understand what he was thinking. It would be nice if a person could only feel something obvious like pure love or pure hatred. 4 days passed before the rain stopped. When the clouds opened and the rain ceased, a team of carts and horses with tinkling bells stepped through puddles of water, distorting the reflection of the sky, and stopped in front of Shizun Peak's gates. The bamboo curtain was lifted, and a folding fan with bright red tassels peeked out from inside. A pair of blue-soled, silver-trimmed combat boots stepped out of the carriage, landing with a heavy thud on the ground, dust flying about. It was a bulky man with thick eyebrows, big eyes, a large waist, light blue-silver armor and a neat beard. He looks like he was in his 40s. He looked rugged, but his pagoda-like hands shook an exquisite literati fan, which was indescribably strange. The fan opened with a snap, the side facing others reading, Shuelang is very beautiful. The side facing him read, the world is ugly. This fan was famous across the realm. The reason for this, in addition to the fan's owner's excellent martial arts, was because the words written on the fan were really embarrassing. One side boasted his ego, the other side mocked everyone else. The handle of the fan swayed slightly. The scent of the fan owner's narcissism could be detected for the next 100 miles. No one in the cultivation world could miss it. Who was the owner of this fan? It was the sect leader of Shizun Peak who had been away for more than 2 months, Shuemeng's father and Moran's uncle, Shue Zhenyang, another cultivation leader. As the saying goes, like father, like son. If the son could be considered a peacock, then the father will surely also spread his feathers. Although in terms of appearance, Shuemeng's good looks was totally different from his father, who was a strong and bulky man. But at least their personalities were similar. They both felt that Shuelang is very beautiful, and the world is very ugly. Shue Zhenyang stretched his back. Stretching his muscles and craning his neck, he said with a smile, "Ah, this carriage ride really tired me out. Finally, I'm home." In Loyalty Hall, Madame Wang was mixing medicinal powder. Moran and Shuemeng were sitting on either side of her. She said softly, 4 tails of clotting herbs and 1 Shaoyang ginseng. I weighed them, mother. Shuemeng sat cross-legged next to her and handed her the herbs. Madame Wang took it, smelled the clotting herb, and then said, "No, this herb was mixed with the patchouli for too long and the scent has been skewed. The tonic won't be as effective. Go and get some fresh ones." "Oh, all right." Shuemeng got up and went inside to look through the medicine cabinet again. Madame Wang continued, 3 dashes of 5-flavor berry and 1 pinch of dodder. Moran neatly handed her the materials. "Auntie, how long should I boil this medicine?" "You don't need to boil it. Just take it? Madame Wang said. After I finish the powder, can you bring it to Elder Yu Heng? Mo Ran originally didn't want to bring it, but after taking one look at Xue Meng's back, he knew that if he didn't bring it, then the person who would be bringing it would definitely be Xue Meng. For some reason, he just didn't like Xue Meng being alone with Chu Wanning, so he said, "Sure." After a pause, he asked, "By the way, Auntie, is this medicine bitter?" "It's a bit bitter." "Why?" Mo Ran chuckled, "It's nothing." But he grabbed a handful of candy from the fruit plate and stuffed them into his sleeve. The people in the hall were concentrating on dispensing medicine when a loud and cheerful laugh suddenly rang out from the entrance of the hall. Xue Zhenyang strode into the temple with a radiant face, and joyfully exclaimed, "My lady, I'm back." Ha 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 ha. The fact that the leader of the sect burst in without any warning startled Madame Wang, who almost spilled the powder in the ladle. She opened her eyes wide in astonishment. "Husband." Mo Ran also got up to greet him, "Uncle." "Ah, Mo Ran is here too." Xue Zhenyang looked burly and menacing, but he was actually very kind. He patted Mo Ran's shoulder. "Good boy. I haven't seen you for a while. It seems you've grown taller. How are things? How was your trip to Kaidi Town?" Mo Ran smiled, "It went well." "Good, good, good. With Chu Wanning around, I knew nothing would go wrong, ha 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 ha. By the way, where is your Shizun?" "Tinkering away alone with his gadgets in the mountains again." Mo Ran sniffed, a little embarrassed. "Shizun, His uncle was fierce and impulsive. A large part of the reason for his uncle's death in his previous life was precisely because of his personality. Obviously, Mo Ran didn't want to outright tell him that Chu Wanning had suffered 200 strikes and was prohibited from leaving the sect for 3 months. As he was thinking about how he was going to word this, there was a sudden awe behind him. Xue Meng had walked out holding a handful of clotting herbs and froze. When he saw his father, he joyfully exclaimed, "Father!" "Meng-er." Mo Ran let out a secret sigh of relief. Whenever this father-son pair reunited, they were bound to flatter and praise one another. It gave him the chance to think about how he would break the news of Chu Wanning's punishment. As expected, the peacock father and son fanned out their tail feathers and didn't hold back their praises for each other. "I haven't seen you in 2 months and my son has gotten even more handsome. You're looking more and more like your father." Xue Meng didn't look anything like his father. He only looked like his mother, but he readily agreed and said, "Your physique has gotten much sturdier." Xue Zhenyang waved his hand and laughed. "During this period of time, when I was walking in Kunlun Taxu Palace, the more I felt that none of those young men were as good as my son and nephew. Ah, I'm tired of seeing that bunch of pansies. Meng-er, do you remember Mei Hangxiu?" Xue Meng immediately showed disgust. "Is that the little fat youth who's been cultivating in seclusion for more than 10 years? Isn't he the senior disciple of Kunlun Taxu Palace? Has he left?" "Ha ha ha, my son has a good memory. That's the one. He stayed at our house for a while when you were young, and he slept in the same bed as you. How could I not remember? That fat boy was like a dog, always kicking people in his sleep. He kicked me off the bed many times." "Father, did you see him?" "Yes, I saw him." Xue Zhenyang twirled his beard as if lost in memory. Xue Meng was an arrogant son of heaven. Because he was competitive and aggressive by nature, he asked impatiently, "What about him?" Xue Zhenyang chuckled, "He's not as good as you if I do say so myself. He's a nice boy. His Shizun taught him how to play the kyukin and to dance. He can cast light work and scatter the flower petals. I thought it was ridiculous, ha 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 ha." Xue Meng's nose twitched. He seemed appalled. A chubby little youth playing the kyukin and dancing, scattering flower petals. Then how is his cultivation? After all, Mei Hangxiu had been in seclusion for more than 10 years. Since their looks have already been compared, Xuemeng will have to compare their cultivation. This time, Xue Zhenyang didn't answer immediately. He thought for a while and said, seeing that he doesn't draw his sword often, it doesn't really matter. Anyway, when the time comes for the Lingshan swords discussion, naturally you'll have a chance to compete with him. Xuemeng's eyebrow twitched. Humph, that fatty's a dead man. It won't matter whether he can fight me or not. Madame Wang had already put the final ingredients in the medicinal powder. She got up, smiled and touched Xuemeng's head. Menger shouldn't be arrogant. Keep an open mind and always show respect. Xuemeng said, what's the use in keeping an open mind? That's what incompetent people do. I want to be as joyful as my father. Xue Zhenyang laughed loudly, look here. With such a distinguished father, how could my son fail? Madame Wang said displeased, you don't teach him anything good, only bad things. What do you have to say for yourself? Xue Zhenyang saw a flash of anger on her face and knew that she was indeed unhappy, so he curbed his smile and scratched his head, my lady, I was wrong. I'll teach him whatever you say, you're right. Don't be upset. Mo Ran. Xuemeng. Madame Wang was a disciple of the Guiyue sect in her early years and was said to have been taken captive by Xue Zhenyang. Whether this rumor was true or not, Mo Ran understood very well that his uncle treated his aunt with great affection. With her, his rough personality melted away. But Madame Wang was not so affectionate with her husband. She was an extremely gentle person, but she always had a slight temper towards Xue Zhenyang. In all these years, it was plainly obvious that the couple's love for each other was deeper than any other. Naturally, Xuemeng didn't bother to watch his parent flirt. He was even a little disgusted. He scoffed and turned away impatiently. Madame Wang was quite embarrassed and quickly said, Menger. Xuemeng waved his hand and strode out. Mo Ran also didn't want to disturb the couple's reunion. It just so happened that this was also the perfect time to avoid his uncle's questioning. Madame Wang can tell him what Chu Wanning was punished for. She can handle it. So, he cleaned up the concoctions on the table, and left with a grin on his face, closing the hall's door for them on his way out. Holding the medicine, he wandered to Red Lotus Pavilion. Chu Wanning was injured, and his body was a little weak these days. The barrier that was originally placed around the pavilion was removed, so when someone came over to his residence, he didn't notice. So, by chance, Mo Ran saw such a scene. Chu Wanning, at that moment, was bathing in the lotus pond. The issue wasn't that he was bathing. The issue was that Elder Yu Heng, who had always been so prim and proper, had two other people with him in his royal lotus pond. End chapter. Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Chapter 32. This venerable one will baby you a bit, will that do? Through the dense lotus leaves, Mo Ran reacted like he had been struck by lightning. He was frozen in shock, all the conflicting feelings in his heart going wild, his expression unable to hide his emotions. Shock, anger, bitter jealousy, irritation, all burst in him like fireworks. He moved his lips but was so angry, he couldn't even get a word out. He didn't even know what he was angry about. There was only one thought going through his head. That man is this venerable one's lover. Do you think you're worthy enough to touch him? Chu Wanning, you arrogant, egotistical, lewd slut. I can't believe you. He couldn't react at all. In this life, Chu Wanning didn't show the slightest passion or desire to engage with him. But in this instant, something in his mind snapped. All in all, it had been more than 10 years, it's almost the span of a lifetime. When he was in his right frame of mind, he was able to play it off easily, he could pretend to be calm. But under the circumstances, his thoughts were chaotic and the truth was revealed. He still subconsciously believed that Chu Wanning belonged to him. Even now, he realized that he could even remember the taste of Chu Wanning's lips when they kissed, not to mention their desire-fueled, lustful interaction and passionate coupling. It was something that he didn't dare think about after he was reborn. Until he saw Chu Wanning's naked back, saw that familiar figure, broad shoulders and long legs, tight muscles, thin and powerful waist, immersed in the clear water. These things that he had deliberately avoided, the lingering feeling he tried to forget, burst through his mind and swept away any resolve he had built. Mo Ran's mind went blank. But his body reacted automatically. And it was such a strong reaction that couldn't be contained at all. Just looking at the scene lit a fire that burned in his belly. When he came back to his senses, he angrily shouted, "Chu Wanning!" Chu Wanning actually ignored him. The two people on either side of him held his shoulders. Steam rose from the lotus pond, making it hard to discern the specific identity of the two people. But they are very close together, they're poised suspiciously dubious. Mo Ran cursed. He plopped into the lotus pond and waded towards Chu Wanning. When he got closer, he realized it was actually two mechanical figures made of metal and redwood. Even worse, they seemed to be harnessing the spiritual energy of the lotus pond water and then channeling that energy into Chu Wanning. By foolishly jumping into the water, Mo Ran had completely broken the spiritual energy flow. He didn't know what kind of array Chu Wanning was using. He was unconscious, supported by the golden light coming from the metal palms of the two figures. Those rays kept surging upward and converged on the wound on his shoulder, clearly healing it. Mo Ran's intrusion caused the golden light to quickly dissipate. What was even more unexpected was that the array actually started to unravel. As the golden light dissipated, Chu Wanning's wounds began to rapidly spread. He frowned, stifling a grunt, and coughed out a mouthful of blood. Immediately, all the scars on his body began to tear open. The blood spilled out like smoke, seeping across the flower pool in an instant. Mo Ran froze. This was Chu Wanning's flower spirit sacrifice technique. He realized that he might be in trouble. Chu Wanning's spiritual flow is a dual system of metal and wood. The metal energy was like for Tianwen, used on attack and defense. The redwood energy was used for healing. Flower spirit sacrifice was one of those healing techniques. Chu Wanning could gather the spirits of hundreds of flowers to heal wounds. However, during the process, no other people should enter the array, otherwise, the spirits would scatter. Instead of healing, it would exacerbate the injury. In serious cases, Chu Wanning's spiritual core would most likely be snatched up by the spirits of the flowers. Fortunately, Mo Ran had dabbled with the flower spirit sacrifice technique in his previous life and immediately severed the energy flow from the spirits. Chu Wanning, who had lost the support of the array, fell down and was instantly held up by Mo Ran. The unconscious Shizun's face was pale, his lips blue, and his body was as cold as ice. Mo Ran dragged him onto the shore. It was too dark out to see anything else. He half held, half dragged Chu Wanning back to his bedroom and lay him on the bed. "Shizun? Shizun." After calling for him several times, there wasn't even the slightest tremble in Chu Wanning's eyelashes. Other than the slight rise in his chest, he looked like he's dead. Seeing Chu Wanning in this state reminded Mo Ran of his past life. Inexplicably, his throat constricted and his heart raced. In the last life, there were two people who died in Mo Ran's arms. Shi Mei and Chu Wanning. The two of them, one the love he had endlessly longed for and the other, an enemy he had been entangled with all his life. After Shi Mei was gone, Mo Weiyu ceased to exist in the world. After Chu Wanning? Mo Ran didn't know. He only remembered that, on that day, he guarded the person in his arms as he grew cold. He didn't cry, neither did he laugh. Joy and sadness became out of reach for him then. After Chu Wanning was gone, Mo Weiyu no longer knew what the world was. At present, the bright lights illuminated Chu Wanning's naked upper body. Yu Heng of the evening sky typically wore tight clothing. His overlapping collar was folded tight and high, and his waistband was wrapped around his waist 3 times, all prim and proper. Therefore, no one could see how injured his body was after 200 strikes. That day, while he was being punished in the court of discipline, Moran saw the wounds caused by the beatings on Chu Wanning's back with his own eyes. At that time, he only knew that it was bloody and extremely grotesque. But then he saw Chu Wanning walking around like normal and thought that he probably hadn't been hurt that badly. Only at this moment did he realize that Chu Wanning's injuries were far more serious than he had imagined. The 5 holes left by the master of ceremonies deity had fully reopened, the deepest of the holes even exposing some bone. Chu Wanning probably didn't let anyone help reapply the medicine. He did it all by himself. The ointment was unevenly applied, and some places that he couldn't reach were inflamed and festered. Not to mention the bruises from the cane. They covered his entire back, almost no skin left unmarred. Plus, with the backlash from the array, now Chu Wanning's wounds were all torn open, blood flowing, staining the sheets underneath him. If he didn't witness it with his own eyes, Moran wouldn't have believed that the person who insisted on wiping the bridge pillars and opening a huge rain-blocking barrier for the disciples was the person in front of him. This kind of serious injury could be classified as debilitating. If Chu Wanning hadn't lost consciousness, Moran really wanted to grab him by the collar and ask him, "Chu Wanning, are you really that prideful? If you bow your head and give in a little, who will stop you? Why do you have to be so stubborn? You're an adult. Why don't you know how to take care of yourself and how to treat yourself better? Why are you so reluctant to ask others to help treat your wounds? Why would you rather have 2 mechanical figures help you with a healing array rather than ask actual people for assistance? Chu Wanning, why are you so stupid? Are you that stubborn?" He cursed to himself while he quickly tapped some acupuncture points to stop the bleeding. Then he fetched some hot water and wiped away the blood stains on Chu Wanning's back. He used a sharp knife to quench and cut off the flesh that had completely festered. For the first time, Chu Wanning groaned in pain, and his body jerking subconsciously. Moran held him down, irritated. "What are you groaning for? Oh, fuck it. If this venerable one stab you straight in the chest, you'll die. If you die then it won't hurt anymore. It'll all be over." It was only at a time like this that Moran could reveal his violent nature and scream at him like he did in his previous life. But there were too many places where the wound was festering and rotting. He gradually cleaned it while Chu Wanning was muttering and panting. Even if he was unconscious, he worked hard to suppress his discomfort. He didn't shout or cry out in pain. He was just covered in a layer of cold sweat. His body, which had just been wiped clean, was soaked in sweat again. After working for almost an hour, Moran had finally applied the medicine and bandaged the wound. Moran helped Chu Wanning into some clothes and grabbed a thick blanket to cover his fevered Shizun. He breathed a sigh of relief. Remembering that Madame Wang mixed medicine was still sealed in the paper bag, he took some boiling water and brewed a bowl of medicine, bringing it to Chu Wanning's bedside. "Come on, take the medicine." He picked up the sleeping person with one hand, letting him lean on his shoulder, and spooned the tonic with the other hand. He blew at it and tried a sip first. Moran immediately frowned, his face screwed up. "Damn it, it's that bitter." But he still let it cool and feed it to Chu Wanning. Inevitably, after just half a spoonful, Chu Wanning couldn't stand it. He choked and coughed, spitting out the concoction, most of which splashed on Moran's clothes. Moran. He knew that Chu Wanning didn't like anything bitter. He was almost afraid of it. But if he was in his normal state of mind, the stubborn elder Yuhan would definitely push through his disgust and swallow the medicine in one swig. At most his face might pucker afterwards and he'd secretly eat a piece of candy. Unfortunately, Chu Wanning was currently unconscious. Moran couldn't help it. It's no use to lose one's temper with someone who's unconscious, so one had to be patient and feed by small sips only. From time to time, he had to use a handkerchief to wipe the tonic from the corner of Chu Wanning's mouth. This was not difficult for Mo Ran. After all, in his previous life, he had to regularly feed Chu Wanning like this. At that time, Chu Wanning resisted, and Mo Ran slapped him in the face. Then he'd grab his chin and roughly kiss him, his tongue rushing in, blood flowing. He hastily to put a halt to such thoughts. The last few spoonfuls Mo Ran fed him were a bit sloppy, almost half of them was coughed up by Chu Wanning. Then he put the man to bed where Chu Wanning twisted the covers roughly. "Am I not so kind? Don't kick the blankets off, you'll get a fever. If you're not careful, you'll catch a cold again." Halfway through his rant, he suddenly lost his temper and kicked the leg of the bed. "Forget it. What do I care if you catch a cold? I hope you get sicker and die." After speaking, he turned and left. When he reached the door, he felt a tug in his heart and couldn't ignore it. So, he turned back, thought about it, and put out the candle for him. Then he left again. This time he walked to the edge of Red Lotus Pond. Looking at the beautiful water lilies that had been dyed with Chu Wanning's blood, the irritation in his chest only grew. He was annoyed but still returned to the bedroom. He stiffly walked around the room like a rusty and aging mechanical figure before he finally stood next to Chu Wanning's bed, still feeling some reluctance. The moonlight peeked in from the half-open bamboo window, the silver glow fanning across Chu Wanning's handsome face. His lips were pale, and his eyebrows were slightly furrowed. Mo Ran hesitated and closed the window for him. It was a very humid night. Sleeping with the windows open at night was always bad for a person. After doing this, Mo Ran inwardly cursed. "Just walk through the door and leave, you damned dog." He got up, but just as he walked to the door, he heard a bang. Chu Wanning actually kicked the blanket off. Mo Ran. How could this person's habit of kicking the covers off the bed be changed? In order not to be a dog, the 16-year-old Ta Xianjun stubbornly endure it and walk away. He would be firm and walk out of that door. A few moments later, the wise and powerful emperor of the realm opened the window and tumbled in. He picked the blanket up off the floor and covered Chu Wanning again. Mo Ran listened to Chu Wanning's soft groan as he twitched in pain. He watched Chu Wanning curl up in the corner of the bed, no longer looking even half as fierce as he normally did. His lips were cursing that he deserved it, but his sympathy won out as he moved. He sat by Chu Wanning's bedside and stood guard. He wouldn't let him kick the blanket off again. It was late at night. After an exhausting day, Mo Ran couldn't keep his eyes open anymore. His head slowly nodded down and fell asleep. It wasn't a good sleep. Chu Wanning kept tossing and turning. In his sleepy state, Mo Ran seemed to have heard him humming lowly. Through his drowsiness and restless sleep, Mo Ran could barely distinguish between what was day or night. Somehow it had become natural to lie next to Chu Wanning and hold his twitching and trembling body. He squinted his sleepy eyes, subconsciously stroking his back. He held the person in his arms and muttered softly in his sleep, "It's all right, it's all right. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt." Mo Ran fell asleep, murmuring, as if he had returned to the Shizun peak of his previous life, back to the desolate and empty Wushan Hall. Since Chu Wanning died, no one had slept beside him. Even if their intimacy was bred out of hatred, those days after days spent in the cold made him think of nothing but his heartache, like 10,000 ants were devouring his heart. When then thought that Chu Wanning couldn't come back anymore, he felt that he had lost the last flame in his life. On this night, Mo Ran embraced Chu Wanning, half asleep and half dreaming. One moment it was clear that he was living a new life, and in another, it was like it had been way back then. He suddenly couldn't bear to open his eyes for fear that he would wake up tomorrow to an empty pillow and cold sheets. That he was left all alone in this life and in this uncertain world. He undoubtedly hated Chu Wanning. However, when he held this person in his arms, the corners of his eyes grew a little moist. He was that 32-year-old Ta Xianjun, holding the warmth that he thought he would never find again. Wanning, it doesn't hurt anymore. His mind was hazy. Like before he had been reborn, Mo Ran stroked the hair of the person in his arms, muttering softly, unconsciously blurting out such a tender line. He was so sleepy that he didn't even realize what he had said or what he had called the other. He spoke the words without any thought. They had just slipped out naturally. Mo Ran's breathing evened out and he plunged into an even deeper sleep. Early the next morning, Chu Wanning's eyelashes fluttered as he slowly woke up. He had a strong cultivation base and the high fever that he had gotten overnight was already gone. Chu Wanning drowsily opened his eyes, his mind still a bit fuzzy. He was about to get up but suddenly realized that someone was lying in the same bed as him. Momo Wiiu. His shock wasn't something trivial. The color drained from Chu Wanning's face. He couldn't remember what happened last night. What's worse, his movements had woken up Mo Ran. The young man yawned. His smooth and delicate face had a healthy blush that was typical of someone who had a good rest. He raised his confused eyes and glanced at Chu Wanning lightly. Languidly he said, let me sleep a while longer. Since you're awake, go and cook me a bowl of preserved egg and pork congee. Chu Wanning. What was all this nonsense? Was he talking in his sleep? Mo Ran was still out of it. Seeing that Chu Wanning didn't move, nor did he urge others to cook the congee, he lazily smiled. He stretched out his hand and lowered Chu Wanning's face, giving him a familiar kiss on the lips. It's okay, you don't have to get up. I just had a nightmare. In my dream, never mind. He sighed and embraced the man who had become completely still and stiff. His chin rubbed against the hair of the person in his arms. He muttered, Chu Wanning, let me hold you again. End chapter. Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Chapter 33. This venerable one is off to fetch his weapon. Chu Wanning was shocked by the sudden kiss. He couldn't make out what Mo Ran was muttering. His words were just buzzing in his ears like static. Mo Ran light-heartedly muttered a few words then fell asleep again. Chu Wanning wanted to shake him awake. However, the haetang flowers on the tree outside the window by the bedroom had just bloomed. Just as Chu Wanning raised his hand, a pale pink haetang flower softly drifted onto the tip of Mo Ran's nose. Mo Ran sniffed uncomfortably, but he continued to sleep soundly and still didn't wake up. So, the hand that was about to reach out to shake him awake, by some miracle, changed directions. Chu Wanning picked up the haetang flower and pinched it between his fingers, examining it carefully. While looking at the flower, lost in thought, he slowly started to remember some details. He vaguely remembered that Mo Ran had cleaned his wound for him yesterday and fed him some soup. After that, Mo Ran seemed to hold him close, stroking his hair throughout the night, whispering in his ear. Chu Wanning was dumbfounded. He must have been dreaming, right? The tips of his ears subconsciously turned red, resembling the brilliant color of the haetang flower resting in his fingertips when it was in full bloom. He swiftly swallowed his reprimands. Really? He didn't know how he should scold him. Why are you sleeping here? That sounded like a loose woman having an affair. Get out of bed. Who told you, you could sleep with me? That sounded like a sloppy vixen. How dare you kiss me? In all honesty, it was just the lips that touched. Compared to that time in the illusion, it wasn't really a kiss. With all this internal debate, it seemed like he was just trying to cover it up. Not knowing what to do, Elder Yuhang could only silently roll onto his side on the bed, burying his face into the bedding. His slender fingers gripped the sheets, a little annoyed and irritated. In the end, he chose to break Mo Ran's arms and legs. He sat up and brushed off his clothes first, and then shook the other party awake. So, when Mo Ran opened his drowsy sleepy eyes, What he saw was Elder Yu Hang sitting by the bed with a profoundly cold look on his face. A cold sweat immediately broke out. Shizun, Chu Wanning interrupted indifferently, you broke my flower spirit sacrifice technique yesterday. I didn't do it on purpose. Fine. Chu Wanning was very cold, waving his sleeves like nothing, get up. Go to your morning lesson. Mo Ran was about to collapse. He rubbed his hair a little anxiously, why am I sleeping here? You were tired. Chu Wanning said very calmly. Looking at you like this, you must have been busy yesterday. As he spoke, he glanced at the medicine on the table. In the future, don't barge into the Red Lotus Pavilion without permission. If you want something, let me know in advance. Yes, Shizun. You may go. Ta Xianjun felt that he had barely escaped with his life and ran away in a hurry. When he left, Chu Wanning laid back on the bed. Raising his hand to open his palm, he looked out the window at the brilliantly flourishing flowers through the gap between his fingertips. The wind-blown flowers fell like fragrant snow. The soft hue of the haetang was like a fragmented memory of last night. Very light, but difficult to distinguish between true and false. He decided not to take the initiative to bring up yesterday's affairs. It was too embarrassing. Elder Yu Hang cherished his reputation like it was gold and would rather die than tarnish it. So, a few days later, when Mo Ran saw Chu Wanning again, Elder Yu Hang was still calm, noble and cold, graceful in his white robes. Neither of them actively mentioned the cuddling that happened that night. Every now and then, however, when their eyes met, Mo Ran's gaze seemed to linger on Chu Wanning for a while, and then, out of habit, chase after Shimei. And Chu Wanning? Whenever he met Mo Ran's gaze, he would immediately turn away. Then, when the other wasn't aware, he glanced back at him, seemingly inadvertently. Xue Zhenyang soon learned that Chu Wanning was punished. Sure enough, the venerable sect leader of Shizun Peak was defensive over his shortcomings and immediately made a big deal about it. But all this fuss wasn't doing anything for anyone, so he could only sulk behind closed doors. He should have added an extra rule when he made the sect precepts, elders are above the rules. Madame Wang made a pot of tea and talked to him in a hushed voice. Only then did Xue Zhenyang calm down, but he still said, Elder Yu Hang is naturally stubborn. If he does this again in the future, you must help me persuade him. Or something. He is a master that the other sects of the upper cultivation world couldn't even dream of having, yet he suffers here like this. How can I make things right? Madame Wang said, it's not that I didn't try to persuade him out of it. You know that Elder Yu Hang is a very stubborn man. Xue Zhenyang said, it's all right my lady. Bring me some of those muscle-relaxing and pain-relieving medicines you've mixed. I'll go see Yu Hang. The white one is for internal use and the red one is for external application. Madame Wang handed the two small porcelain jars to Xue Zhenyang, and said, I heard Ranner say that Elder Yu Hang has been rubbing clean the lions at Nehi Bridge these days. You should be able to find him there. So Xue Zhenyang grabbed the porcelain jars and rushed all the way to the edge of the Jade Bridge. Chu Wanning was indeed there. At this time in the afternoon, the disciples were busy practicing and few people passed by Nehi Bridge. On the winding Jade Bridge, Chu Wanning stood alone, standing tall and upright, exuding a strong character. Forest leaves on both sides of the river, white clothes against the green of the bamboo, the posture of a gentleman. Xue Zhenyang walked over and smiled heartily, Elder Yu Hang, are you looking for fish? Chu Wanning turned his face to the side, sect leader must be joking. This river flows through the yellow spring water of the underworld, how can there be fish? Haha, I'm just kidding. You're so elegant that you're no fun. You won't be able to get a wife if you go on like this. Chu Wanning. Here, the wound medicine, my wife mixed it. The white one is taken internally and the red one is applied externally. It works very well. Here you are. Chu Wanning originally didn't want it, but seeing that Xue Zhenyang was so proud of the medicine his wife made, he couldn't refuse it. He accepted it and said lightly, "Thank you." Xue Zhenyang was a rough man, but facing Chu Wanning, he was a bit cautious. He didn't dare try coming up with just any sort of casual small talk. After thinking about it, he picked a topic. "Yu Heng, in 3 years, the Lingshan sword discussion will take place. When the time comes, young talents from various sects will gather together to compete for a higher and lower level. What do you think are Menger and Ranner chances of winning?" Chu Wanning said, "That's 3 years away. It's not easy to predict. I can only say that, at the moment, Mo Ran isn't trying to make any progress and Xue Meng is gullible and conceited. They both aren't where they should be." He spoke plainly and honestly, without beating around the bush. Xue Zhenyang couldn't keep a straight face, and muttered, "Ah, these young boys." Chu Wanning said, "They're weak, not young." Xue Zhenyang, "That's true, but they aren't even 20 after all. As a father and uncle, it's inevitable that I'll be a bit biased, haha." Chu Wanning, "To nurture without teaching is the father's fault. To teach without severity is the teacher's laziness. If these two people go down the wrong path in the future, you and I are to blame. How can you be biased?" Chu Wanning added, "Does sect leader remember that Linyi Rufeng sect also produced 2 heavenly sons back then?" When he mentioned this, Xue Zhenjiang's heart suddenly sank. More than 20 years ago, the Linyi Rufeng seconds, the first major sect in the upper cultivator world, once had a pair of brothers, both of whom were young and very talented. The 2 of them were able to subdue a 100-year-old demon by themselves alone at the age of 10. At the age of 15, they had reached the point where they could create their own techniques and start their own sects. However, there is no room for 2 tigers on one mountain star. As both of them were among the highest-ranked cultivators, the siblings ended up in deep rivalry. At the Lingshan sword discussion, the younger brother was despised by all the sects and spurned by the elders for spying on his older brother's techniques in advance. After the meeting, the younger brother was immediately punished by his father. He was arrogant and haughty. From then on, he held a grudge, specializing in wayward tricks, and finally degenerated into a heartless demonic cultivator. Note. Same thing as this town's not big enough for the both of us. Chu Wanning mentioned this old matter right now, undoubtedly wanting to tell Xue Zhenyang, although Xue Meng and Mo Ran are excellent, their well-being is more important than their techniques. It is a pity that Xue Zhenyang is harsh on himself and serious with his disciples, but he is lenient with his son and nephew to the point of spoiling them, so he didn't listen to Chu Wanning's words, only scoffed and said, "With Elder Yu Heng's guidance, they won't follow the path of those 2 brothers." Chu Wanning shook his head. Human nature is unpredictable. Unless one is painfully determined, it's easier said than done. When he said this, Xue Zhenyang couldn't help but feel a little uneasy. He didn't know if Chu Wanning was implying something. After hesitating briefly, he said, "Yu Heng, aren't you being a bit? Well, like I said, don't be offended, aren't you somewhat looking down on my nephew?" Chu Wanning did not mean that. He didn't expect Xue Zhenyang to misunderstand him like that, and he was speechless for a moment. Xue Zhenyang said anxiously, "In fact, I don't particularly care if they can come to prominence in 3 years. Especially Mo Ran. He grew up with a lot of hardship, his nature is inevitably a bit stubborn and twisted. I hope you don't dislike him because he was raised in an entertainment pavilion. Alas, he is the only flesh and blood left of my elder brother in the world. I always have some bias in my heart for him." Chu Wanning interrupted Xue Zhenyang and said, "My lord has misunderstood. I never looked down on him. If I minded Mo Ran's background, why would I be willing to accept him as a disciple?" Seeing his straightforwardness and resounding tone, Xue Zhenyang said joyfully, "That's good, that's good." Chu Wanning's gaze fell back down to the river rolling under the bridge. He watched the flooding waves surge up and clash. No more words were spoken. It's a pity that the conversation between the two on the bridge and Chu Wanning's confession were just like in the previous life, easily swallowed by the waves. In the end, no one else heard that he was not disgusted by Mo Ran. 3 months of grounding passed in a flash. On that day, Chu Wanning summoned his 3 disciples to Red Lotus Pavilion and said, "Your spiritual cores are all stable. I have summoned you here today to take you to Dawning Peak so you can try to summon your own weapons." Upon hearing this, Shuemeng and Shimei's eyes widened and a joyful look appeared on their faces. Dawning Peak was a sacred mountain in the upper cultivation world. Its peak is 1,000 feet tall and it stretches for more than 10,000 feet wide. According to legend, Dawning Peak was once the place where the god Gushan Shanggong forged his sword. Gushan Shanggong is a god of war, in charge of the north and south celestial poles, and dominates the world. When the Emperor of Heaven was slaying demons, Gushan Shanggong used the mountain as his base, the lake and the sea as a pool, and his own blood as the raging fire, and forged the first real sword in the world. When this sword was struck through the heavens and earth, the natural order was torn apart, and the sea flowed backwards. The Emperor of Heaven took the sword and suppressed the demons under the earth in 2 strokes, making it difficult for them to rise up from then on. And those 2 moved across the earthly frontier, cracking out 2 hideous deep valleys. After this battle, the heavens rained down, ghosts cried in the night, thunder crashed and the torrential rain poured for thousands of years. The 2 deep trenches cut by the divine sword filled with rainwater, and it became the Yangtze River and the Yellow River that gave birth to countless lives. As for the world-breaking Dawning Peak, it has become a sacred place of worship for immortal cultivators generations later. The spiritual power left behind by the ancient god is so dense that, to this day, countless mysterious spirits still haunt the mountains and exotic flowers and plants continue to grow. Numerous cultivators also peered at Dawning Peak to break through the Great Dao and ascend. But for the rest of the world, the biggest attraction of this strange peak where the divine sword was cast is still its Jinchinj Lake. It is an ice pool on the top of Dawning Peak, which is frozen all year round. According to rumors, when Gushan Shanggong made his divine sword, he cut through the palm of his hand and squeezed out his own divine blood, and a drop of blood splashed on the low-lying parts of the peak. After millions of years, the divine blood had still not dried up. It formed this clear and visible Jinchinj Lake for future generations to behold. Regardless of whether this rumor is true or not, Jinchinj Lake's wonders were real. Although it was frozen 3 feet thick all year round, there were few cultivators who could make the pool water temporarily melt with the power of their spiritual core, and an ancient beast will jump out of the lake with a divine weapon and offer it to that cultivator on the surface. Shuemeng asked impatiently, "Shizun, what ancient beast jumped out when you received your divine weapon?" Chu Wanning said, "A kunpeng." When Shuemeng heard this, an eager light flashed in his eyes. "Amazing. I get to see a kunpeng." Mo Ran interjected, "Wait until you melt the lake before you talk." "What do you mean? Do you think I can't melt Jinchinj Lake?" Shuemeng retorted. Mo Ran chuckled, "Oh, why are you angry? I didn't say that." Chu Wanning said, "It won't necessarily be a kunpeng who brings the weapon from the lake. It is said that there are more than 100 divine beasts living in Jinchinj Lake, guarding the spirits of the divine weapons. As long as one of them likes you, it seeks the weapons it can obtain and offers them to the person on the shore. Moreover, these divine beasts each have different temperaments, and they will make various requests of you. If you can't complete them, they will take their weapons and return to the bottom of the lake." Shuemeng wondered, "That's how it is? Shizun, what request did the kunpeng ask from you?" Chu Wanning said, "It said it wanted to eat meat buns." The 3 disciples were stunned for a moment before bursting out laughing. Shuemeng said, "I was scared to death. I thought it would be something difficult." Chu Wanning also smiled faintly and said, "I was just lucky. These divine beasts have strange and unusual requests, they could ask for anything. I have also heard that someone summoned a Shishu, and the little rat asked that man to let him marry his wife. The man didn't agree and the Shishu left with the weapon in his arms. Since then that person has never had the chance to get a divine weapon. Shi Mei murmured, "That's such a shame." Chu Wanning glanced at him and said, "What shame? I respect him." Shi Mei hurriedly said, "Shizun misunderstood. I didn't mean that. Naturally, exchanging your wife for a powerful weapon is out of the question. It's just a pity that he missed out on such a divine weapon." Chu Wanning said, "It's just a rumor, but it's a pity that I never met such a person. Many years ago in Jinjinj Lake, I saw how wretched the human heart could be." He paused, seeming to remember something, and his eyebrows furrowed. "Never mind. Forget I mention it." Over the past thousands of years, Jinjinj Lake has witnessed swaying loyalty and many people who have been exposed to the unfairness of the world. In front of the divine beasts, how many people can give up the opportunity to own a divine weapon and still uphold their morals without hesitation? Haha. Chu Wanning scoffed. It seemed that he was remembering something unpleasant. His expression gradually became indifferent, his lips tightened and he became quiet for a while. His sharp eyebrows frowned slightly, and seeing his expression seemed to be as if he is a little disgusted. "Shizun, it is said that Jinjinj Lake's divine weapons have different temperaments, so did you manage to use yours smoothly on the first try?" Xuemeng changed the topic when he saw that he was displeased. Chu Wanning raised his eyes and said faintly, "As a master, I have 3 divine weapons. Which one are you referring to?" End chapter.